The Battle of Fuzhou, or Battle of Foochow, also known as the Battle of the Pagoda Anchorage, was the opening engagement of the 16-month Sino-French War. The battle was fought on 23 August 1884 off the Pagoda Anchorage in Mawei Harbor, 15 kilometers to the southeast of the city of Fuzhou. During the battle, Admiral Ame Courbet's Far East Squadron virtually destroyed the Fukien Fleet, one of China's 4 regional fleets. Background: on the 11th of May 1884, French and Chinese negotiators concluded the Shanxi Accord, an agreement designed to end several months of undeclared hostilities between France and China in Tonkin. On the 23rd of June 1884, French troops advancing to occupy Lang Son, in accordance with the terms of this agreement, clashed near the small town of Baisila with a detachment of the Chinese Guangxi Army. The Chinese opened fire on the advancing French, precipitating a 2-day battle in which the French column was seriously mauled. This incident, the Baisila ambush, was the proximate cause of the Sino-French War. When news of the Baisila ambush reached Paris, there was fury at what was perceived as blatant Chinese treachery. Jules Ferry's government demanded an apology, an indemnity, and the immediate implementation of the terms of the Tianjin Accord. The Chinese government agreed to negotiate, but refused to apologize or pay an indemnity. The mood in France was against compromise, and although negotiations continued throughout July, Admiral Courbet was ordered to take his squadron to Fuzhou. Courbet was instructed to prepare to destroy the Fouchow Navy Yard, 15 kilometers downriver from Fuzhou at Mawei, and to attack the Chinese fleet in Mawei Harbor. Ironically, the Fouchow Navy Yard represented a substantial French investment in China's future, having been built several years earlier under the direction of the French administrator, Prosper Gical. During the second half of July and the first half of August, Courbet gradually concentrated his squadron in Mawei Harbor, at the Pagoda Anchorage, named for a conspicuous Chinese pagoda, the Luoxingthe, which stood on a hill above the harbor. Negotiations between France and China broke down in mid-August, and on the evening of the 22nd of August, Courbet was authorized by the French government to commence hostilities. He duly notified the foreign consuls, the Governor-General of Fukien and Zhejiang, and the commanders of several neutral warships moored at the Pagoda Anchorage. Order of battle: only a fraction of the Far East Squadron was present off the Pagoda Anchorage on the morning of the 23rd of August. In particular, none of the Far East Squadron's 4 ironclads was immediately available. Bayard, Courbet's flagship, was at Sharp Peak near the island of Matsu, guarding a vital telegraph station. Atalante was hunting down pirate ships in the Gulf of Tonkin. Courbet had summoned the ironclads Triomphante from Shanghai and La Galissonière from Geelong to join him off Fuzhou, but La Galissonière had been detained at Geelong by bad weather, and although Triomphante was approaching the Min River, it was not clear whether she would be able to cross the bar at its entrance. Courbet had under his immediate command the first-class cruisers Du Guaitroan, Villas and D'Estaing, the third-class cruiser Volta, the gunboats Lynx, Aspic and Vipera, and torpedo boats No. 45 and No. 46. The second-class cruiser Chateau Renaud and the troop ship A1 had been left at the Jinpei Pass, at the entrance to the Min River, to stop the Chinese from laying a barrage to prevent the squadron's escape. The Chinese Fukien fleet consisted of the wooden corvette Jiangwu, the scout transports Chenhang, Yongbao, Fupo, Feiyan and Jian, the paddle steamer Yizhe, the wooden gunboats Zhenwei and Fuxing, and the Rendell flat iron gunboats Fusheng and Jinsheng. 12 large junks were nearby, but did not take part in the battle. The French squadron displaced 14,500 tons and included 1,780 men, while the 11 warships in the Chinese fleet displaced 8,000 tons, and included 1,040 men. The French squadron was much better led and better armed than the Chinese fleet. Only a few of the Chinese ships were capable of offering serious resistance to Courbet's attack. The Chinese defense was under the command of the Imperial Commissioner Zhang Pelin, one of the leading members of China's war party. Table 1. French warships in the Min River actions, August 1884. Table 2. Composition of the Fukien Fleet, August 1884. Fleet deployments. The Chinese fleet was deployed into a northern group of 8 ships and a southern group of 3 ships, with the French squadron lying in between. The wooden corvette Jiangwu, the wooden gunboat Fuxing, the armed transport Fou-Tchéou, the Rendell flat iron gunboats Jianshengen and Fushengen, the small paddle steamer Yige were deployed on the northwest curve of the river, between the French ships and the Fou-Tchéou Navy Yard. A little behind them lay the unarmed transports Yongbao and Chenhang, anchored just off the dockyard. The role of this northern group of ships was obviously to prevent the French from attacking the Navy Yard. Meanwhile, the armed wooden transports Jian and Feiyun and the wooden gunboat Zhenwei lay downstream of the French squadron, dangerously isolated on the southwesterly leg of the river, in front of the customs building. Their job seems to have been to protect the customs building and to block Courbet's exit from the Min River. Courbet's plan provided for overwhelming firepower to be deployed against the Chinese fleet. He had noticed that the Chinese ships swung with the tide, and determined to make his attack just before the top of the tide at 2 p.m. on the following afternoon, Saturday the 23rd of August. When with luck the Chinese ships would have swung away from the French ships and would be presenting their vulnerable sterns to the attackers. This timing was also important for another reason. If Triomphante successfully ascended the Min River, it was about then that she would be making her appearance. Assuming that the Chinese fleet did not change its position, Courbet's orders provided for the French ships to be at action stations at 1:45 p.m., and to go into action at around 2 p.m., on his signal. The battle would begin with an attack by torpedo boats No. 45 and No. 46 on Yangwu and Fuxing, the 2 closest Chinese ships of the main Chinese concentration. This attack would be supported by cannon and rifle fire from Volta. Volta would then concentrate on destroying a line of war junks and fireships drawn up just to the west of Losing Island. Once the attack by the torpedo boats had cleared the way, the gunboats Aspic, Vipera and Lynx would sail upriver towards the Navy Yard and take on the other ships of the Chinese Northern Group. 4 steam launchers under the command of Lieutenant de Vaisseau Augustin Bouet de la Perriere, the future French admiral, were given the job of protecting Volta and the 3 French gunboats from attack by the Chinese mineboats. To the east, Du Guaitroan, Villars and Destaring were to reduce the 3 ships of the Chinese Southern Group, to engage the war junks from the flank, and to engage a battery armed with 3 Krupp cannon near the pagoda, and 3 other batteries armed with Krupp cannon which protected the arsenal. Their launchers would be deployed to give protection against Chinese torpedo attacks. The Battle of Fuzhou. On the morning of Saturday the 23rd of August, although the Chinese commanders knew that the French would launch their attack at around 2 p.m., the sailors in both fleets went about their routine business. The ships of the Fukien fleet made no attempt to redeploy or to anticipate the French attack by opening fire first. The French crews went to their action stations at 1:30 p.m., after eating their midday meal. The Chinese did not react to this obvious threat, and at 1:45 p.m., the flurry of activity aboard the French ships died down. For the next 10 minutes the tension grew aboard the French ships as the minutes ticked away towards 2 p.m. At 1:55 p.m., a Chinese mineboat advanced towards the French squadron. Courbet immediately ordered the attack to begin, only 5 minutes short of his original timetable. At the outset of the battle, the Chinese flagship Yangwu was successfully attacked with a spar torpedo by torpedo boat No. 46 and grounded. The French torpedo boat suffered damage to her boiler during this attack. The dispatch vessel Fuchsing was attacked less successfully by torpedo boat No. 45, and was subsequently crippled by Volta's torpedo launch and carried by boarding by Bouet de la Paix's sailors. She had already been set alight by French shellfire, and was eventually abandoned by the French prize crew and sank in the middle of the Min River. Their spar torpedoes expended. The two French torpedo boats drifted downriver after making their attack towards the anchorage of the neutral vessels off Losing Island. Lieutenant Latour had been seriously wounded in the eye during the attack, but he refused an offer of medical assistance from American officers on US Enterprise, explaining that he could not leave his post while the battle was still in progress. Meanwhile, the French cruisers and the ironclad Triomphante, which joined the French squadron only minutes before the battle began, were making short work of the rest of the Chinese fleet. Chenhang, Yongbao, Feiyang, Jin, Fusheng, and Jiansheng were either sunk or set alight by shellfire from the cruisers Duguay-Troan, Villars and D'Estaing. Only Foucault and Yige survived the battle without serious damage, by escaping upriver before the gunboats Lynx, Aspic and Vipera had a chance to engage them. Genway was blown up by a single shell from Triomphante. Before they were put out of action, the outgunned Chinese vessels concentrated their fire on the French flagship Volta, hoping to kill Corbeau and the officers of his entourage. Several sailors aboard the French cruiser were killed or wounded, and shortly after the start of the battle a round shot ploughed through Courbet's command group on the flagship's bridge, killing the British pilot Thomas and only narrowly missing Capitaine de Frégate Jigan, Volta's captain. A few minutes later, splinters from an exploding Chinese shell wounded Lieutenant de Vaisseau Ravel, Courbet's aide-de-camp. The fighting ended at 5 p.m. But during the night of the 23rd of August the Chinese made a number of unsuccessful attacks with fireships on the French warships, obliging some of them to shift their anchorages to evade them. Bombardment of the Fou-Tchéou Navy Yard. On the morning of the 24th of August, Courbet issued orders for his ships' landing companies to go ashore with the naval engineers to destroy the Fou-Tchéou Navy Yard. Preparations were made for a landing, but Courbet then changed his mind. After observing that the Navy Yard was defended by organized groups of Chinese infantry, the attack was cancelled as the French sailors were on the point of climbing into their launches. Instead, the French bombarded the Fou-Tchéou Navy Yard, damaging a number of outbuildings and holding the sloop Henghai, still under construction and lying on the slips. A certain amount of damage was inflicted, but without the support of the heavy guns of Triomphante and Duguay-Troan or the slightly lighter guns of the cruisers Villars and D'Estaing, which drew too much water to enter the shallows off the Navy Yard except around high tide. Courbet was unable to destroy the yard completely. He himself admitted in his official report that the damage done was not as much as I had hoped for. The French squadron remained off Fuzhou during the night of the 24th of August. Once again the Chinese tried to make a night attack. At 4 a.m., two Chinese torpedo launchers tried to attack the gunboat Vipera, anchored at the head of the French line. Both launchers were lit up by searchlights on the French ships and attacked with Hotchkiss fire by Duguay-Troan. One launch was sunk instantly, while the crew of the other abandoned ship and swam for the shore. Descent of the Min River. On the 25th of August, after receiving the congratulations of the captains of the neutral warships on the professionalism displayed by the French squadron during the action of the 23rd of August, Courbet began to lead his ships back down the Min River. The squadron's two heaviest ships, Triomphante and Duguay-Troan, led the way. On 25 and the 26th of August the French bombarded the Tianluoan and Minnan batteries, two Chinese shore batteries covering the approach to Fuzhou through the narrow Minnan Pass. The Chinese batteries, built to fire only on enemy ships approaching from the mouth of the river, were taken in reverse and destroyed by Duguay-Troan and Triomphante. On 27 and 28 August the French squadron bombarded and destroyed the Chinese defences at the Jinpei Pass near the entrance to the Min River. The Jinpei and Changnan batteries, known to the French as Fort Kimpai and the White Fort, were put out of action, and the French also inflicted heavy casualties on a number of Chinese field batteries and infantry formations. However, before its guns were destroyed, the White Fort was able to inflict moderate damage on the French ironclad La Galissonière, which had sailed up from Geelong to join Courbet's squadron and attempted unsuccessfully to fight its way into the Min River. Chinese infantry at the Jinpei Pass also killed and wounded several French sailors aboard the gunboat Vipera on 27 August. Losses. The losses of the French squadron in the course of the operations before Fuzhou and in the Min River were relatively light. Most of these casualties were inflicted not by shell fire during the engagement of 23 August but by sniper fire from Chinese infantry during the squadron's descent of the Min River. The French dead included Lieutenant de Vaisseau Bouet Willemez, second in command of the gunboat Vipera and son of the noted French Admiral Louis-Édouard Bouet Willemez, who was shot dead on Vipery's Bridge during an exchange of fire with the defenders of Fort Kimpai on 27 August. With the exception of La Galissonière and torpedo boat No. 46, none of Courbet's vessels suffered serious damage. The Chinese lost 9 of the 11 ships of the Fukien fleet. Some of the Chinese ships foundered where they were struck, sinking off the Pagoda Anchorage and the Foochow Navy Yard. Others drifted downriver and either ran aground or sank between Losing Island and the Minnan Pass. French officers aboard Chateau Renaud, anchored near the entrance to the Min River, saw 3 Chinese warships drifting downriver on the evening of 23 August, abandoned by their crews and blazing from stem to stern. One of the Chinese ships exploded in front of their eyes. Courbet estimated Chinese casualties at between 2,000 and 3,000 dead. The commemorative tablets in a shrine erected shortly after the war at the Pagoda Anchorage to honor the Chinese dead list the names of 831 sailors and soldiers killed on 23 August. But this list does not include the hundreds of Chinese soldiers killed by the French during their descent of the Min River. The Chinese Imperial Commissioner Zhang Pelin, who made no serious attempt to coordinate the resistance of the Fukien fleet, was degraded after the battle and replaced by the veteran General Zhao Zongtang. He Jing, the Governor-General of Fukien, and Zhejiang, Zhang Zhaotong, the Governor of Fukien, and He Ruzhang, the Director-General of the Foochow Navy Yard, were also degraded. The Manchu General of Fuzhou Mu San, who had directed the defense of the Jinpei Pass on 27 and 28 August with skill and energy, kept his job. The Cantonese naval officer Zhang Cheng, a graduate of the Foochow Naval College and captain of the Chinese flagship Yangwu, abandoned ship as soon as the battle started and was later beheaded for cowardice. Factors in the French victory. One of the factors in the French victory at Fuzhou was that the French squadron had sailed up the Min River in time of peace. The Chinese claimed after the battle, with some justice, that the French would never have been able to ascend the river if the two countries had been at war. A second important factor was the absence from the battle of the modern battleships Ding Yuan and Zhen Yuan, which had recently been completed in Germany for China's Beiyang fleet. The Chinese battleships were more powerful than any of the ships under Courbet's command, and in December 1883, foreseeing that war with China was imminent, the French persuaded the German government to detain them in the event of hostilities. The German government invented a number of plausible excuses for keeping the 3 battleships in port, and they remained in Germany for the duration of the Sino-French War. They were finally released in July 1885, and joined the Northern Seas Fleet in October of the same year. Some Chinese historians, embarrassed by the completeness of the French victory, have asserted that disunity in the Chinese command structure was an important factor in the Chinese defeat. The Chinese regional fleets and armies represented a considerable, personal, investment of revenue and prestige that was used to leverage influence at court, and the respective fleet commanders were often loath to see these important assets diminished by war damage. The result, at Fuzhou, was that the Fukien fleet received little help from China's three other regional fleets. Despite her appeals from Zhang Pelin and direct orders from the Empress Dowager Cixi, the commanders of the Beiyang fleet, the Nanyang fleet and the Guangdong fleet declined to send ships to reinforce the Fukien fleet. Feiyan and Jian, two Fukien vessels which had been loaned to the Guangdong fleet in 1882 to observe French movements in the Gulf of Tonkin, were sent back to Fuzhou in early August by Zhang Jidong, the Governor-General of the two Guangs, arriving just in time to share the fate of their comrades in the forthcoming battle. However, Zhang did not release any of his own Guangdong ships. Li Hongzhang defied an order to send two ships from the Beiyang fleet to Fuzhou, and the Zhejiang governor Liu Bingjiang refused to release the Nanyang ship Chaowu. Ships involved in the Min River actions. France. Triomphante, La Galissonière, Du Guaitroan, Volta. Torpedo boats number 46 and number 45. China. Yangwu, Fupo, Fuxing, Jianshenk, Yish. French naval uniforms, 1884. French sailor, going into battle. The battlefield today.